Hi everyone. Hi Jay. How are you doing?
Hey Phil, good to see you. Another good
Yeah,
day here on LinkedIn.
yeah. Long time no see. It was cool to have you in the office last week.
It's always good to be in Montreal and in the office. It's always better to be around your colleagues than working remote through Google Meets. It's a little bit more tangible.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right. So, is my audio fine? I know that Joe
Yeah,
mentioned that.
I hear
Yeah,
you great.
perfect.
Yep.
So yeah, today, yeah, the topic of the day is our Revit plugin. So I think one thing that is interesting is to go over kind of an overview of what we're doing at Prevu3D and explain you the process on how to use Revit and how it's being leveraged by some of our customers and how you could leverage it inside your workflow. So it's really like understanding the value of integrating real world data inside Revit. So some of you might already be familiar with that, bringing either point clouds, meshes as reference points inside Revit, but some of you may not be. So we will cover that as well and do some demonstration about those workflow. And maybe like we will also show you a little bit about like scan to Revit coordination workflow. So it's kind of we will show you some back modeling examples, how you could leverage the point clouds for coordinations and things like that. Is there anything, Jay, that you would like to add on that?
Well, I think it's important to kind of start with the building blocks of what Prevu3D is doing, right? So we're a company, specializing in the transformation of real world data. That data coming in from any different type of device, whether that's an Insta360 camera, Matterport, Leica, Faro, SLAM device, drone device. What we're trying to do is bring that data in as a point cloud, generate that into a mesh, use those meshes to then contextualize your space as what we're calling as reality assets. And those assets can then be utilized in Revit families. They can be utilized as just an object in that space within Reality Plan, Reality Platform, or pulled into the other applications that we also have, Plant Stream, MicroStation, Inventor,
Yeah.
Omniverse, and eventually SolidWorks when we get there. So a lot of good ways to get data in, a lot of good ways to process that data, host that data, and then get those hooks for other applications in our future releases of our beta tool that's soon to come.
Yeah, and I think one thing important that you mentioned is the fact that we are device agnostic. On our side, we want to gather all the reality capture data out there. So every week, sometimes we are adding new devices support. So yeah, that's really important to us to be device agnostic. Um, Being able to import all your reality capture and centralize it inside Reality Platform. So that's our cloud platform where you can store, organize your point clouds by sites and yeah, share them easily. And now being able to create meshes from them and import those reality capture data inside Revit.
Yeah, I mean, emphasizing those critical roles of integrating accurate site conditions into the project workflows is really what these connectors are for. And then the long-term strategy is facility management, asset management, a bunch of different ways of structuring construction projects in an iterative scan approach or long-term longevity of that data as a facility management model.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think one thing that we can discuss as well is the importance of having those that real world data because quite often I have seen it with multiple customers. Their existing drawing are not accurate. They might not have any drawing as well, and there's some impact related to that. And I know that you have maybe more experience than me on the field with such data. Maybe you can explain it a bit further, like the typical challenge and issues that you have seen with people that does not leverage such data.
yeah, I mean, some of the bigger issues is, hey, I've won this project. This project has a large facility, 100,000 square feet, 100,000 square meters, whatever the size and the location you're working in. It has no as-built drawings. It has no CAD. It has no blueprints. It has nothing. How do I get that data? Well, the easiest approach is to scan the space, and then once you have that point cloud data, use that to generate a mesh. Once you have that mesh, use that mesh to generate the contextualized space for each individual vertical, right? So if you're an architect, you now know where the walls are, structural columns, mechanical equipment, electrical equipment, plumbing equipment, all the way down to some furniture, depending on the space in which you're dealing with. So it really helps in the greenfield. It really helps in the brownfield environments. Really kind of contextualize that space to what you currently have to help you build it out. And we're allowing anything from that camera, that small camera, that Insta360 or that Ricoh Theta, to come through and help you generate that space. At the end of the day, is the mesh great? Depending on the device, there's always going to be a level of barrier on how much money you have for that scope. So if you have a $500 camera and you can turn that into a mesh, great. If you can back model that in Revit and push that back into the Reality platform, that's even better. Or if you can pull down something from that manufacturer, whether you're dealing with a data center and you have a rack system coming in from an organization, you can pull that directly in, remove what was there as a mesh completely from our system, and now you have the true to life built environment already there, and you can walk around it with our avatar or just use it for additional contextualization with other assets that are in there.
Yeah, I know that a lot of our customers also have been able to speed up their project and prevent some delays having that reality data available. Otherwise, they would have faced issue on the field while installing new equipment or design inaccuracies and things like that. So we have a lot of customers that found out issues ahead of times based on that data.
Sure. Yeah.
And
It's very important. Yeah.
if there's any questions, don't hesitate to ask on the comment sections. We will answer them as we go. So don't hesitate to ask your questions at any time.
So here at Prevu3D, we went through our standard model. It's a mechanical room, and we generated some assets from that space to kind of illustrate the speed in which you can capture and the level of granularity that you can capture of that data for the asset creation. And those assets can then be leveraged back into Revit using our Revit connector. So the video that Phil is showing right now is a single pipe mesh creation. We're using our mesh, our reality pipe tool. Basically trace down that pipe. You can spin around using our tabletop tool right there at the bottom, and you can expand those bounding boxes as needed to capture every aspect of that pipe. On the left-hand side, you have the ability to orbit, look at different isometric views or top views, and then you have the ability to generate that asset, save that asset, and then that asset is now a fully defined asset in the photosphere mode or in the mesh mode. And at any one time, you can go back and adjust that bounding box or binding boxes, however big it is. And you can export it, you can turn it off. A lot of different features with that. Right.
Yeah, so the goal of that feature is really to quickly isolate pipes in a manual way. Yes, as you can see, down the road we will also come up with more automation process on that side. For now, our main target was at least to have the manual tools to do it, fine-tune the geometry. As you can see, we can quickly fine-tune if there's some missing components instead of only relying on automatic segmentation, because yeah, there's some needs for automation for sure, but we need some ways to fix any issues, because automation will never be perfect or as you want. So having those manual tools will greatly help on that side. I think we also have another video showcasing something similar where we are defining this time a pipe network. So I will let it go, and maybe Jay, you can comment over it. But
of course, yeah. So this one, you have a large set of pipes, and maybe you don't want to model all of these. Maybe you're the architect and you want to see where they fall in your space. Maybe you just want to understand contextually where they are for a bigger project. Maybe you want to tie into this without modeling every pipe. So what I did is I just came through, generated a bounding box for each one of these. And I'll just slowly walk you through in this video how easy it is to step through this space and generate this asset for all of these pipes with a bend in the environment. So anytime you're using our tools, we have 3 different ways of generating our assets. You always have the ability to add an additional box, modify the existing structure, navigate that space, and really kind of pinpoint the assets that you need. So right
Here, what
now,
we see.
adding that secondary box to kind of get that bend in there. And then you see that it's a little bit bigger, so you just pull it right down, make it the same width or height to capture everything. And the bounding boxes are good. So if those pipes are on a specific pitch, you can adjust that slope of you can adjust the box to kind of adjust for that pitch or that slope of that pipe. And now, when you bring that into Revit, you don't have to worry about where it's located because you're already going to know where it's at, right? So if you bring in the pipes, you bring in maybe a little bit of columns and structural aspects, you can go back and you can model that space however you need. You may not need to do the pipes, and that saves you that time of modeling that pipe. If you need to back model it, then you can simply just draw those pipes as is in Revit and go. And what we're seeing here, this is the modeling of the structural columns. Very straightforward. Again, that turntable. But right here, this is some magic. These are the clipping boxes. So it cuts out some of that noise in the environment and helps you isolate that pipe. Now, there's another tool on the left-hand side that allows you to isolate the individual asset that you're generating. Just been turned on. So now nothing outside of that bounding box is available for viewing. As you expand that bounding box, you'll get more and more context. If you're just looking at the clipping box, you get the context of that clipping box. And then we do have the ability to turn on assets, turn off assets as needed to kind of, simplify, or you can certainly cut them as well and completely remove them from the environment to allow for a back model element to come in, or simply just remove it for the sake of what you're looking at.
Yeah, so that I think that's important to be able to isolate your structural components. And obviously, there's another video regarding the assets per se, so more on the equipment. So yeah, a lot of our customers also use that to document their space, but it can be leveraged for engineering purposes as well inside Revit, where you might want to grab some existing equipment in the field, either like you mentioned, prevent having to back model them or back modeling them as well. So both options are possible, and we will show some videos on how we can achieve that with that specific hair filtering unit, I think, or hair
This is
handler
air handler unit.
Yeah.
Yep. Clipping box to kind of isolate that noise, and then we're going to go back in and generate that asset. And then it really allows you to fine tune what you want to capture, right? So it's on kind of a concrete pad above the floor. So you can go down to whatever level you need if you want to capture the concrete pad itself. And then you also have the ability to navigate the orientation of the box using your XYZ controls and use that turntable at the bottom to kind of spin around and make sure you have everything you need. Give it a name, and then you have that asset. And that asset can come in and it can be utilized as needed. Turn it off. Now you can actually look through that device and into the chamber of the air handler unit.
Yeah.
And again, viewable in the photosphere or the mesh.
Yeah, so those assets, they have multiple intent. What we will cover today is how to bring such assets inside Revit. But just for you to know, there's ways to attach properties as well on those assets. You can export them, crop them out, move them around inside the scene. So there's a lot of other use cases for design layouts and things like that. But today we will mostly cover the workflow with Revit. So that would be the next step in our presentation. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to add a comments in the chat, and we can answer that as well. So yeah. So regarding the back modeling, should we start with the air handler unit, Jay? or the plan?
Yeah. Let's jump into the insights on the easily accurate scan-based assets that we're generating here.
Oh, perfect. So yeah, let me pull that video here. It's the one that so now that we have defined that hair handler unit over here, we will show you the way to connect and fetch that data set inside Revit. Maybe Jay, you want to comment what we are seeing on the screen currently?
Yeah, can you pause it for
Yeah,
a
sure.
brief minute?
Let me go back over here. Yeah.
Perfect. So the way that our reality plan or desktop application connects with Revit is it connects over port 3000. Open up reality plan, open up Revit, make sure your session is saved, and specifically if it's a new model. And then you will have the ability to bring in any assets that's already generated. You'll see in the different videos that we have, there's a different listing in there, and that's just the amount of assets that have been generated in the layout that was available at the time in which we ingest the data. So the models have been fully coordinated. The beauty of what we have here is we have an existing Revit model that's been modeled complete. And what we're doing is we're bringing in elements, we're showing a back model, but then we also have the full IFC model that in another session will then be brought back into reality plan for that model coordination. So go ahead and play the video, Phil. Kind of illustrate what's happening here. So we're looking at the reality assets. There is the one asset that we have generated in this layout. We're selecting the family we want to add it to, the level of detail from 1 to 10 that we want. And that is going to be a function of how much of that data is going to have from a file size perspective. And right now we're editing that family. It comes in as a family. So we're going to go through and we're going to edit this family. We're going to look at different aspects of what we can actually get out of it from the Revit textures or the visualization component. And then we're going to go through and do some measurements and actually generate this air handler unit as a new device within Revit.
Yeah, so over here what we see is being able to as well, like, yeah, pull measurements, but also we can back model that object. So I know with point cloud there's some limitation on that side. You can't necessarily bring them inside the family editor, but with the mesh you are able to snap with the points and things like that. So that can help you a lot to build your asset as a family if you want to create a BIM model of that asset instead of using the mesh directly. So it will be up to you depending on how often you reuse, I would say, your components. So if you plan to reuse that across several projects, it might be worth to create a BIM model of the object. If it's just for a single project, maybe it's not worth even remodeling it at all, and just use it as is might be the best option depending on your need. We do have one of our customer recently that saved like a couple of hours of backmodeling some complex object. They just leveraged the mesh directly. What they did was to add some snapping point on the object itself on the mesh version. So they added a bunch of connectors for intakes, outtakes, and from there they were able to connect the greenfield piping routes and things like that to the existing brownfield equipment without having to remodel everything from scratch. Because at the end of the day, they don't necessarily need the equipment itself, but more the connection points with the new piping system. So that's what they did, and they saved a lot of time of modeling.
Yeah, but it's important. So the more assets that you generate within Reality Plan, the more assets that are available to be brought into the programs that we integrate with today, Revit. The other aspect that you can do that we haven't highlighted is you can actually bring in the full point cloud, and you can actually bring in the full mesh of that environment if you wanted to. And within our toolbar, we have the ability to turn the point cloud on and off, which is essentially just a link within the managed add-ons within the point cloud. So what we're looking at right now, this is actually the modeled piping network. There's the point cloud. I just illustrated that you can turn the point cloud on and off. These are the assets that have been generated in the layout, a lot more than the last one where I only had one asset. picking the right family, and then picking the level of detail. Now the video is sped up to kind of help accentuate the aspects that need to be accentuated. But within a matter of a couple minutes, you'll actually see the piping tools or the pipes come into this environment. You'll be able to see where they're located and how they're located and coordinated. The big aspect here is, hey, is the model coordinated? And at the end of the day, can we take the back model elements that we have in Revit from the point cloud and the mesh, push it back into Reality Plan, and now have a full solid instead of just that mesh? Create those connecting points and then understand exactly what we need moving forward.
It might be a bit hard to see on the video with the share screen and all that, but what we see is kind of there's the mesh version overlaying with the CAD version that was made already. So it's a good way to either compare against your existing BIM model, or if
Yep.
there's some missing pipes, you can model them based on that mesh file. So depending on your needs, we don't show exactly how to remodel that, but you could imagine doing like a cross section of your mesh and then remodeling that pipe if you need to. So that could be done easily.
Yeah, but we'll have a couple of videos coming out on each one of these assets and the back modeling of them. The pipes and the columns are the only ones that are missing from our to-do list. But if you have any other suggestions of things you would like to see back modeled from a mesh, let us know. And then if you have a good mesh that you'd like for us to back model off of, let us know. We'd be happy to get more data to kind of illustrate these points. But the one aspect here that's really cool when you push it back into Reality Plan is you can do those clash detections. You can do those comparisons against the existing environment to see where you are and the accuracy of the data. You can set those tolerances to be a specific level or threshold, depending on what you guys need as project or scope-driven element.
I see there's two questions in the chat. One from Aristoteles. What's the single most requested enhancement you hear from Revit from the power users? And how is it shaping your next release? I think I would say there's two components. One of them is streaming directly from our Reality platform is one component, I would say. As we are gathering all the data inside Reality platform to centralize all your reality capture data, streaming directly from the platform would be something interesting for sure. And other things.
I have a good one too for that.
Yeah, go ahead.
That is bringing the IFC data with all of its filled parameters back into Reality Plan.
Yeah, well, that one is possible in a way where you can like bring back the IFC model and you can right click and inspect the metadata. And now the next step would be to attach that to the reality assets, I would say. Yeah.
Right. And that should come with Reality Twin.
Yeah, exactly. So
which is, coming.
Yeah, coming pretty soon. There's another question from Lauren. Bring in any asset that already generated. What does that mean? So I would assume
that's related to the assets that we have before this webinar created in the layout.
Yeah.
The air handler unit, the pipe network, the single pipe, and the structural columns. Anything that you have generated from the mesh is going to be classified as an asset, and then that asset can then be brought into the tools that we have connectors for.
So it would be the list in that video over here where we shown how to define that hair unit over here. We see on the right side panel, there's also others reality asset that were defined previously. So that's what we are referring to. You can create as much reality asset you would like inside the scene, and all of them will be exposed through the Revit plugin.
Right. Great. So that left us with the back modeling. Synchronizing elements to improve our coordination is really the end game of all of this. So what we're looking to do in the next webinar is to kind of highlight bringing the components that we've already back modeled within Revit back into Reality Plan and kind of show you the cradle to grave workflow and the simplified approach of what it takes to do all of that. From a piping perspective, a structural column perspective, maybe a wall or two of air handler unit or other equipment. And then also maybe potentially bringing in additional equipment that we have from Sketchfab, soon to be Fab, or other elements that may exist in the environment that have been designed outside, maybe an Inventor or SolidWorks, MicroStation, or Prevu3D.
Yeah, totally.
So to answer Lauren's question, generated, so the manual identification of the different components. So yeah, so generated would be, the manual asset of associating a bounding box to a device, a pipe, a wall, an object within Reality Plan. What we're looking to do is kind of formulate a more concrete example of that space using these tools to kind of help understand what that space is going to have. And then the long-term strategy is a better contextualized environment with our beta tool, which will actually connect into other aspects of external solutions. So this can be used in construction scheduling, from understanding your equipment and where it's laid out to full delivery, facility management, asset management.
There's also questions from Carl's regarding like do they show a diff between as built and as design? So currently within the Revit plugin, it's not there at the moment, but inside Reality Plan, we do have a tool to do such visual compare. So you can bring back the as built, well, the as design, and compare it against the scan and see the deviations visually. So we do have some visual effect that allow you to see such differences. So that's a tool that we have inside Reality Plan. It's not yet exposed on the Revit side, I would say.
Yep. And we also do, with those back modeled objects or any other third party object you want to bring in, we do have the ability to do clash detection. And you can actually do that on the fly as you move that through. It's going to automatically generate the clashes in relation to where you are in that environment.
Yep. There's also another questions regarding the ramp up time for Revit users new to Prevu3D. Maybe Jay, you can answer some of it. I can take one part of it. I would say, like on our side, Prevu3D is quite user friendly. The adoption time is like the ramp up time is pretty fast with Revit. I think with the training and like within a 1 hour training, 2-3 hours playing around, you are almost mastering Prevu3D and all the tools. Everything is easy. We make sure that like that's one of our key components. Keep it as simple as possible while maintaining some power tools available. So on that side, it's quite simple. Obviously, if your Revit users are not familiar working with point cloud, there might be like some ramp up time on the Revit side a little bit, but it's quite intuitive. And once you master like the different workflow to do scan to BIM, that's quite straightforward. Is there anything on your side, Jay, that you would like to add on that?
Yeah, I think ultimately the bigger challenge that any user has with our product is figuring out how they want to utilize it the best, right? So it's really intuitive. But at the end of the day, if you're a single user or if you're a team user, really, how are you going to structure the licensing and how are you going to structure the workflow so that everybody understands what's happening? So you do start with a default environment, and that default environment cannot be overwritten. So you can actually parse out a specific layout to the entire team, put that on a local network share, put that in a cloud network share. Each user can download that has Reality Plan, and they can start there and start doing their layout, or you can just allow them to kind of organically go through that space and generate what they need to, play with it as they need, and get to their design aspirations on their own. So it's really a function of another tool in the tool belt that helps the design team, the BIM manager, and everybody else do a real quick layout.
Yeah. Is there I know I see which that we are extending a little bit. If there's any other questions, don't hesitate. I would say on our side, what we're coming up with is like 2-3 case studies around the Revit plugin as well. The marketing team is working hard on that. In some testimonial from some of our existing customers, and I think it will help you to really see what they have achieved and the return on investment that they have seen using such a tool. Yeah. So that's coming up quite soon. But overall, one of them has reduced a lot of times back modeling objects, and they saved like I think 60 hours just of modeling. Instead, it took them like 1 hour with Prevu3D uploading the point cloud, converting it as a mesh, and then use it through the plugin. So they save like
Yep.
a lot of times just doing this.
A lot of the larger organizations that work with us are using it to contextualize their campus until they can actually get to the Revit stage for each individual building. So everyone's on a different budgetary constraint. And if you have a scan of your entire campus or multiple buildings, you could potentially process all of those as a mesh. Then you actually have a placeholder for the future models that you're going to do. And then as you go through and you do upkeeps, you do conversions to those spaces, you can easily do that through the back modeling approach and just push those changes up, or you can do a rescan and have that data there as a fresh mesh with conjunction of the CAD and the BIM.
Yeah. One interesting thing as well is even on like on an individual basis, like if you are single on your project, you can still benefit the tool, or even if it's like a larger organization initiative where you want to store and organize your data, your reality capture data in one single place, there's even more benefits to do it. But even for single users, that can be beneficial. So both options, like even if it's on your side or a larger initiative in your organization, both can be beneficial.
And then I think the last question we can field today is Lauren's. And when partnerships come around, it's always a pressing topic, and a lot of time is spent on trying to generate new partnerships. Procore is a very central focused construction scheduling application that everyone's utilizing at least I know in the US. I'm sure they're using it in Canadian environment as well. So we're always looking to generate new partnerships with new companies. So we'll get a partner team and see where we are with Procore.
Chloe. So yeah, I think on our side, that's what we had to present today. I would say stay tuned. We will most likely do a next session about the Revit plugin as well. Deep diving on the back modeling aspect and some other features as well.
Coordination, yep.
Great.
Thanks for attending, guys. Look forward to the next one next month.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.